So my name is Scott Lancaster, and I am one of the research and instruction librarians at Waters Library. And we do online presentations like this. And one of the new ones, the new approaches I wanted to try this semester was just to do a shorter 30-minute session on more targeted things. And one of the things that I had become aware of was that people were asking how to manage their time, how to do research. And one of the important skills, I think, is knowing how to read a research article, how to move very efficiently and as quickly as possible through all of the things that you collect as you do research. So I'm going to go over some of the things, some of the ideas I have for how to do that. Some of it's going to be taken from my experience as a librarian, and then some from my experience in writing my own dissertation. So first, I will share the screen to show you the slides that I have. So the three things that we're going to discuss are how to browse through the result list. You will have gotten a result list that where we, that's one of the first things that we show you in the library is how to do a search, how to use keywords, how to get results, how to focus it down to a manageable list. And we'll discuss how to go through that list and select articles that you want to look at more closely. And secondly, how to skim through the important components of those flagged articles. That's going to involve understanding what the parts of a research article are, in the same way that when you read a book, you understand that the table of contents and the index are ways that you can move quickly through, as well as chapter headings and subheadings. And then finally, how to critically read selected articles to find salient points that are connected to your research project. And that's going to include also kind of gathering those ideas together in some type of note-taking system. There are two main types of research articles that you might encounter in a peer-reviewed journal. The first one is empirical research, which is where the author has done his or her own study. They've collected data that will answer whatever research question or problem that they have chosen to focus on. It will usually contain observed and measured examples that inform or answer that question. The data might have been collected through interviews, surveys, questionnaires, observations, experiments, or other various methods. And it will usually be organized in what's called the IMRAD, which is Introduction, Methods, Results, and Discussion structure. So knowing that structure will help you to find those important things within the article. The other kind of research article you might find is theoretical research. This is a paper or an article where the author supports a claim or a question without relying on their own interviews or surveys or questionnaires. They're depending on the theoretical research that's available in the scholarly literature that they've collected. And you might find review articles that are like this as well. Generally, they will introduce and discuss abstract ideas or principles, either new or established, that are related to a specific field of knowledge, with a particular focus on ideas formulated to explain, predict, and understand phenomena. And established theories are often introduced, described, analyzed, and compared as the author uses them to develop and present his or her own view, new idea. So basically, the empirical is going to have collected their own research. The theoretical is going to have dealt with collected research from somewhere else or looked at an abstract idea. So looking at a result list, I have a screenshot here of a search that I did just in a general academic database, Academic Search Complete. I searched with reading and computers because I was interested in how reading comprehension is affected with digital formats. And I focused it down to the last 10 years and to peer-reviewed articles. And you can see I've got 426 articles, which is too many to read all of the articles, but I may not be able to focus it down anymore. I may want to start looking through this. And the default sort list of any of these searches is going to be by relevance, which means the things at the top of the list or at the beginning of that 426 are better results. So the method I use is to quickly go through as many of the titles as I can, as I feel is necessary to go through. And I mark them. I put them in my folder. And what you see when you are looking at the result list for the articles that you have pulled up will be the title, author, source, or the name of the journal, the date, the publication type, and subject headings that the database has assigned to that, and then the abstract, which is going to be a short summary, which has usually been created by the author themselves, and that will summarize what is in the article. And if you hover over the icon on the right, if you click on that, and it's the same way with the ProQuest databases, you will see an extended record. What you see in the result list is a short record. And what you get when you click on this icon is an extended record, which will include the abstracts. You can scroll down. And I use this method here because it doesn't take me out of my result list. If I click on the title here, it will take me to another page that has the extended record, but I've also taken out of the result list and I have to back up into it. But if you use the icon over here, you can just, it'll pop up and then you can just close it when you want. And if it's an article that I like, I will click the folder icon, and that will, put it into my folder. And I quickly moved down the list, looking at titles, looking at abstracts, and I just put things into the folder that I want to look at more closely. And then you have to be signed in and have an account to have the folder retain your articles from one session to the next. But if you're signed in, you can create custom folders. And so I will first put all of the articles that I'm looking at into this general folder up here. And then I look more closely at them and I discard the ones that I don't want. And I put the ones that I want to keep into a custom folder. And then I look at them more closely in that folder, understanding the components of a research article. So this is the point where I will actually open up the article. And what I've looked at so far is what is in the database record, which will include the abstract or summary. But now I'm in the article itself. And if it's an empirical article, it will have typically 5 sections, and sometimes they're labeled introduction, hypothesis, methods, results, and discussion. The introduction is going to be, it will lay the groundwork for what the study is about, what the research project was that the article deals with. And it will usually complete with the hypothesis. So if you look at the end of the introduction section, that's where you'll find the hypothesis. So, and you don't have to read the whole article at this point. Move very quickly through it. Look at the end of the introduction for that hypothesis. And then the next is the methods section. You're going to want to know is what type of data is collected. Is it a qualitative study, a quantitative study? What methodology are they using? And oftentimes I will search through the article. And if I'm looking at it digitally, I can use Control F to do that search. And I just put in the word methodology and find it in the article, because that is going to be where it's explained how they went about doing whatever that they did. And I also look in here for what type of instruments might have been used or how they collected the data. And next will be the results section. Often you will see these, they'll include tables or graphs, and frequently in the result list, when you're looking at the very beginning, you will see little icons underneath different articles where it has all the different tables or graphs that are in that article. And that's one way that you can spot empirical research. Is if it's got tables like that, then it's going to be reporting data of some sort. And then finally, it'll end with the discussion where it explains whether the results that were collected answered the hypothesis, how it answered it, and it will point to future research. Most important thing, I think, after you've seen the abstract is to find the hypothesis, to understand what type of research this is, and then to jump to the discussion and see what is the conclusion that was drawn. You don't have to read the entire article. You don't have to read it in order. Start with the abstract. That'll give you a general summary. If the abstract seems relevant, and that's relevant to whatever your research interest is, then move to the conclusion or discussion section of the article to gain a better understanding of the article's main claims. At this point, if the article does not seem relevant or useful, then discard it. However, if the article does seem useful, then spend as much time as necessary reading the article. And this is the last section of reading critically. So you've selected things quickly out of a result list based on skimming over the titles and maybe the abstracts. And then you move to the second point where you're looking very quickly over the parts of the article using your understanding of the structure of an academic article to pick out the ones that are actually the most connected to your research topic. Now you're going to be reading critically. You're going to be collecting, identifying the important points in these articles. You need to organize the essential and relevant ideas that you find in your sources so that you can put them together to make an argument and say something new. And you might be doing these with note-taking, index cards, or source synthesis. With note-taking, and of course, I learned note-taking with handwriting. I mean, it was all print and handwriting, but you may also be doing this now in a digital format, or you may do both. If you're going to be taking notes, you develop a key for annotating and note-taking while you're reading. And I think it just has to be whatever works well for you. It could be highlighting in different colors, having each color mean a different thing to you. You look for main ideas. You can focus on article abstracts and subject terms in databases as starting points. And you try to locate the article's thesis statement. Those are things that I will often highlight or circle or write a note beside. And link resources together. Look for common themes to connect resources. If you've got especially if it's the theoretical type of research, you'll want to understand how one author is connecting to another author, and how two articles then are interfacing with each other. Create a list of terms to use in grouping ideas into useful categories, because you're going to have to start thinking about how you're going to organize the writing that you're going to do, how you're going to put together all these ideas that you've pulled from these articles. What information should you capture? The thesis statement, the evidence and key points, how this aligns with the rest of the literature, any interesting quotes that you might want to use, and your own reaction is important too, whether especially if it's a connection to something outside of what the article is itself talking about, because that will be a new connection that you're making. A sentence or two, how this work may be beneficial to your research. And I'll show you a couple of examples in a minute of how I did that. And always remember to include the correct citation in your notes, especially if you're copying down direct quotations, because you want to cite it properly. I've often had people come, with something that they're at the point of having their dissertation be submitted, but they found that they're using a quote and they forgot where it came from, or they didn't write down where it came from. And so we have to go backtrack and figure it out where it came from. And it's better if you keep those notes in the beginning. And also it helps prevent you from inadvertently plagiarizing something, because you might see something in your notes and think, oh, that's something I wrote, I made that up. And then you put it in your paper or your thesis or dissertation. And then when it goes through Authenticate, as all of those documents do now, then it's discovered actually you didn't write that. That was something that came from somewhere else. So keep from the start, remember in your research to always keep the citation for where you're getting your information. This is just an example that I did of a research project a few years ago. And I actually printed the articles out. You may come up with a way to do this all digitally, but I usually, what I do when I have print articles that I printed out, on the first page above the title, I will put like main ideas of what the article is dealing with, and especially how that relates to my research project. And if I've got a lot of articles, especially if they're written by the same person, I'll put the year up there. Even though I can see the year down at the bottom, it just helps me to have the year at the top. And then you can see I had a color coding here that I was using. I had blue and yellow meant something different. And then I took notes in the margins for important things, that important ideas. And then this was one from my dissertation. Thomas Tansel is like a leading figure in what I did with my dissertation. And I had 15 or 20 articles by him that I had read. So I really had to try to put all of these ideas that he put in these articles. I had to make it make sense in my mind so that I could pick out what points I wanted to include in my dissertation. And you can see this is where I put the especially because, like I said, there were so many articles by this one man. I put the year up here so I could know, in what order that these ideas were being published. I put a Post-it note that connects it to these other writers, especially McGann and McKenzie were important figures, and I needed to. And so I could see Tansel is arguing against ideas that they had, and again, I just highlighted and took notes. Uh, and also, if I had a long article, like I think this one was like 50 pages, I would put a page number at the beginning because there was something on page 26 that I wanted to, I think I used a quote from it. So that is the way that it helped me as I was trying to pull apart these articles. And then also, this is the kind of notes that I took. These are all a lot of articles by that one man, and I just I was trying to get an idea of the timeline of the development of his ideas, and so I put them all in order down here. But this was the order I read them, and I just put a little notation for the title so that I would understand what it was about, and then I just put my main idea of what was important in that article for me. I put page numbers when there was something specific that I wanted to quote, and that's just one method I used for doing it. And then I ended up turning everything into a digital format. I sort of started my research before I got into having everything be digital, and then I started putting it to digital at the end. So I recommend you make it, you decide what you're going to do from the beginning. But these are quotes. When I had I decided I might want to pull direct quotes from an article. I just put them all in one document. And then another way is index cards. I used index cards a lot when I was in my master's program, which was long before computers. I was using a typewriter, and it was really helpful because it was like a puzzle to me. I would have things, I would have, just like what this is, I would have a topic, and I would have a quote or a summary, and on a card, and I would lay them all out and put them sort of together how I wanted to organize the ideas. And you might still find it useful to use index cards to keep your notes. However, again, I turned this into a digital format for me. I ended up just typing everything out by computer, but then I still printed them out and cut them up so that they looked like index cards. It was just something that I created with a computer. That worked for me to be able to move things around and put things side by side or pull them away from each other. And then the last thing is source synthesis, which I never have used, but it's a kind of a new thing, I guess. I think I did this, but I didn't have kind of a template for doing it. You're looking for relationships between sources. For instance, there's 5 sources that someone might have, has collected for their dissertation. And you can see that these 4 sources, these 3 all overlap with each other. They have ideas that are in common. And source D only has ideas in common with source B. And then source E is just completely unrelated to any of the others. So it's important to develop an understanding of that and to know where the sources agree and where they disagree. It'll help you to develop new insights by drawing conclusions based on what the sources say. And it's more than a summary of sources. It's not just restating the ideas, it's connecting them to the academic conversation that is going on about the field of study that you're researching. Identify connections between sources. Do all the sources agree with each other in some area? Do any sources agree with another source in more or one or more areas? Does any source extend the argument of another source do any sources raise new or unique ideas or questions? Because basically what you're doing when you collected, for instance, those 5 articles that are about some topic, field of study, you are looking at a conversation, an academic conversation that is going on in printed peer-reviewed literature, and you are trying to figure out the relationship between the ideas. And there's actually a matrix that you can find where you've got your different sources, and you are pulling out the ideas that are important to you, so that you can see, you can look across here and see whatever this main idea is, this is what all these say about it. For instance, this is an example. The topic is women in World War II, and we've got 4 sources, and we've got 2 sort of main ideas. The alteration of women's roles because of World War II, and the hardships and oppositions women faced. So these articles dealt with all 4 of that main idea, but only these 3 dealt with these. And this just helps you to see, okay, you know, this author said this about the alteration, these, and this one said that, and you can see the relationship that they have with each other. So synthesis matrix is a source that is a way that's being used to put your ideas together. Well, that's all that I really had. I wanted to, like I said, this was sort of an experiment to see about putting everything into a short 30-minute format. I'm going to stop the recording now. And